Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Your Excellencies, our esteemed keynote speaker, Mr. Thomas Trikasih Lembong, former Minister of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia 2015 until 2016, and former head of the Investment Coordinating Board BKPM 2016 until 2019. Honorable Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Professor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, SHM Hum. Good morning, Professor. Honorable Vice Dean for Resource, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Sri Hasuti Puspitasari, SHMH. Honorable Vice Dean for Religious Student and Alumni Affairs, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Andes Agus Trianta, MAMH, PhD. Honorable Head of Department of Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Bambang Sutioso, SHMH. Honorable Secretary of Department of Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Syarif Nur Hidayat, SHMH. Honorable Head, Doctoral Study Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Profesor Dr. M. Syamsuddin, SHMH. Honorable Head of Master Study Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Sefriani, SHM Hum. Honorable Head Master Study Program in Notarial Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Nur Jihad, SHMH. Honorable Head of Undergraduate Study Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dodik Setiawan Nur Herianto, SHMH, LLM, PhD. Honorable Head of Undergraduate Study Program in Business Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Mumin Zaki, SHM Hum, PhD. Honorable Secretary of Undergraduate Study Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Mr. Bagya Agung Prabowo, SHM Hum, PhD. Honorable Secretary of International Program, Undergraduate Study Program in Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Aroma Elmina Marta, SHMH. Honorable Secretary of Undergraduate Study Program in Business Law, Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Mr. Fuadi Isnawan, SHMH. Today, we are also privileged to be joined by our distinguished plenary speakers, Professor Abu Bakar bin Munir, Ms. Tamalin Bolus, Christopher Michael Kesson, GD, Professor Aurelia Colombi Ciaci. Respectable our partner institutions, as co-hosts of this incredible agenda, our sincere gratitude to the Dean of Universitas Kuningan, Dicle University Turkey, University Science Islam Malaysia, USIM, dear presenters, participants, press, and all the audiences. Once again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, most gracious, most merciful, the one who has blessed us with countless favors, the gift of health, the blessing of knowledge, and the opportunity to gather here today in the spirit of academic pursuit and cross-cultural friendship. And it is only by His divine will that we are able to be here to share insights and to strengthen bonds and to through the spirit of learning and collaborations. Peace and salutation, salawat and salam, always be upon to our greatest prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has, with guidance, wisdom, and compassion, teachings inspire us to seek knowledge and to uphold justice and integrity in every aspect in our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, it is sincere honor for me, Farhan Juliansyah, to serve as your Master of Ceremony for this distinguished gathering of scholars, practitioners, and researchers. And welcome to the second Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology, and Society, ICLTS 2025. Please give a round of applause. This conference, organized collaboratively by the postgraduate study programs of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, together with partners. And this conference will involve the keynote insights, expert plenary sessions, and international call for papers presentations, aims to deepen understanding, encourage constructive dialogue, and highlight best practice across countries with lasting collaboration that contribute effective legal, regulatory, and policy framework for a more just, sustainable, and humanity-centered global future. Without further ado, let me read the structure of today's agenda. The first agenda is opening. Second is singing Indonesian national anthem Indonesia Raya, followed by hymn of Universitas Islam Indonesia. And then recitation of Holy Quran, report from the organizing committee, welcoming remarks, and official opening by the Dean of Faculty of Law Universitas Islam Indonesia, traditional dance performance following by video performance, and keynote speech by the keynote speaker. After the keynote, we'll have photo session and token presentation, then move into the core academic program, the plenary session of expert sharing featuring 4 distinguished speakers. Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, to begin this blessed academic morning, let us open this agenda by reciting Bismillah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. To seek blessings, clarity, and peace of heart, let's welcome Brother Zaki Takiuddin Rahmat to recite first from the Holy Quran. To Brother Zaki, the stage is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مثل الفريقين كالأعمى والأصم والبصير والسميع. هل يستويان مثلا أفلا تذكرون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن هذه تذكرة تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما صدق الله الجبار العظيم. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Brother Zaki, for the soulful recitation. We will honor our nation by singing the Indonesian national anthem Indonesia Raya, followed immediately by the hymn of Universitas Islam Indonesia. For all the audiences, we invite you to stand up. Thank you. Please have a seat. Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, we now proceed to the committee report for today's conference. Respectfully invite the head of the organizing committee of the second Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology, and Society, ICLTS 2025, to Mr. Rahadian Difaul Barok Suartono, SHMH. The stage is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On behalf of the committee, let me to report of the celebration of the second Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology, and Society. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du. The respected keynote speaker, Bapak Thomas Trikasih Lembong, that's joining us from the Zoom. Thank you very much for attending the second postgraduate ICLTS. And also, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, the respected Professor Budi Agus Riswandi. Respected speakers, Professor Abu Bakar bin Munir, Ibu Tamalin Bolus, Bapak Christopher Cation, and also Professor Aurelia Colombiciaci that will join with us via Zoom live from Groningen, the Netherlands. Our respected co-hosts, in behalf of Dean of the Faculty of Law, Universitas Kuningan, Professor Suwari Ahmadian, and also in this occasion, we would like to welcome the delegations from the Faculty of Law, Universitas Kuningan. Welcome to Yogyakarta, to the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Dean of the Faculty of Sharia and Law, University Science Islam Malaysia, Professor Abdul Manan Ismail. In this equation, the delegations and also co-hosts from USIM, Malaysia, Faculty of Law, Dicle University, Turkey, our partners in the joint degree program, especially in the master program of law. Leadership, Vice Dean of Resource Management, Dr. Sri Hastuti Puspitasari, Vice Dean for Religious Students and Alumni Affairs, Dr. Andes Agustrianta, PhD, Head of Postgraduate Study Programs, the administrators of this distinguished occasion conference, international conference, the Head of Master Program in Law, Professor Sefriani, the Head of Master Program in Notarial Law, Dr. Nur Jihad, the Head of Doctoral Program in Law, Professor M. Samsudin, Head of Study Programs in Bachelor Programs, Head of Departments, Secretary of Departments. To be mentioned, the Postgraduate International Conference of Law, Technology, and Society is an annual conference, and this year we receive in total 86 papers and around 200 presenters. And after internal review process from our respected professors, journal editors-in-chief, and lecturers, today we will have 86 papers and around 221 presenters that will deliver their presentations offline and online. There will be 7 offline chambers and 2 online chambers. The distribution of the papers come across the globe, from Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia, Nigeria, the United Kingdom, and also Turkey. This conference being administered as the faculty members, our co-hosts, and all our colleagues, lecturers, dear lecturers, and practitioners in law. And also in this conference, We have collaborations with around 9 journals, not only on the Faculty of Law, but also on these occasions, one journal, the Unifikasi Jurnal Ilmu Hukum, published by the Faculty of Law, Universitas Kuningan. Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu sekalian, to not prolong these reports, I hope that we all can enjoy the academic atmosphere. You can all share your presentations and research in this, the second postgraduate ICLTS. Let's have an academic forum. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Please give round of applause to our head of organizing committee. It is now our honor to invite the Dean of the Fakulty of Law Universitas Islam Indonesia, Profesor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi, SHM, to deliver welcoming remarks and officially open today's plenary sessions. To the Honorable Dean, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Distinguished speaker, the honorable guests, respected all of leader and lecturer in Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, and also dear postgraduate student and committee. It is great pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the second postgraduate international conference on law, globalization, and human rights. This conference invites us to reflect on dynamic interaction, global legal development, and the enduring pursuit of human dignity and justice. In an increasingly interconnected world, the rule of law is vital in safeguard human rights, promoting equality, and ensuring that globalization serves humanity in a whole. I hope this academic forum will inspire constructive dialogue and collaborative research and innovative legal thinking for more just and human global order. Thank you. I wish you successful and inspiring conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please give round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much for the Dean for the welcoming remarks and officially open today's plenary session. And distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, before we move forward into the main sessions and into the keynote speaker, before we move, please welcome and let us celebrate the beauty of Indonesia's cultural diversity from our Sanggar Terpena with Enggang Dance. Please give a round of applause. little brief description about Enggang dance. This dance is inspired by the Enggang bird, also known as the hornbill, a sacred and respected bird in Dayak culture. For the Dayak community, the Enggang bird symbolizes purity, nobility, and the connection between humans and the spiritual worlds. Dear ladies and gentlemen, before we move forward into the main sessions, we will play the video by UII Faculty of Law video profile. For the community, time is yours.
The world stands at a turning point where unprecedented change moves faster than our understanding, and the forces of globalization reshape the destiny of nations. Technology surges forward with unstoppable momentum, redefining power, identity, and the way humanity connects. Yet in this vast digital frontier, new questions emerge, questions that demand courage, clarity, and wisdom. Amidst this transformation, the law rises as our anchor, a safeguard of dignity, a shield of human rights, a guide through the complexities of a world in motion. And here, at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, a global forum is born, a meeting place for minds, for innovators, for emerging leaders who will shape the future of law and society. Welcome to the second Postgraduate International Conference on Law, Technology, and Society. This year, we unite under the powerful theme, Law, Globalization, and Human Rights. The dialogue begins now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a very special moment of today's agenda, the keynote speech. We are honored to welcome Mr. Thomas Trikasih Lembong. We are privileged to have you with us, to Mr. Thomas Trikasih Lembong. The time and the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Law at the Universitas Islam Indonesia, Bapak Profesor Dr. Budi Agus Riswandi. I also want to acknowledge my fellow speakers, Bapak Profesor Abu Bakar bin Munir of the University of Malaya, Ms. Tamalin Bolus of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Professor Aurelia Colombi Ciaci of the University of Groningen, and Mr. Christopher Kesin of the Universitas Islam Indonesia. Dear students, honorable ladies and gentlemen, dearest organizing committee, once again, thank you for this opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, I just want to share how pleased and excited I am to have this opportunity to participate today. Many of you in the room might be aware that a few months ago I escaped some extraordinary legal jeopardy, and frankly, the fact that I'm a free person today is owing to a significant extent to a team of brilliant lawyers, many of whom are actually proud alumni of the law faculty of Universitas Islam Indonesia. So again, I couldn't be more pleased to try to make some contribution to today's conference at your faculty, given that I owe my freedom to many of your alumni. And I think it's a very interesting time that we're meeting, that this conference is taking place. Not only it's November, and we're heading into the year end, which is often a time of reflection, but also globally, I think we're in a peculiar moment in human history, right? And as I was reflecting on the remarks I would give today, I was thinking, well, I've seen what your law faculty alumni, my lawyers, were capable of And I was thinking about the role that lawyers and law faculty, such as yourselves, will play in the years to come, which I think will be critical years in defining not only, the path of our economy or the path of our politics, but as I'll outline shortly, I believe we're actually entering a period of civilizational struggle. And I really believe that law and practitioners of law will play a really, really important role in defining the future of, it wouldn't be too, it wouldn't be going too far to say, what kind of a species humanity wants to be, over the next several decades. So the civilizational struggle that we're in the midst of, one of them is whether around the world a system of electoral democracy and predictable and impartially applied law prevails, or whether humanity returns to merely a more technologically advanced version of what we call the law of the jungle, where might makes right, where the strong dictate and maybe terrorize the weak, which is the condition that humanity largely lived in for most of our 700,000 years of existence before the Renaissance in Europe in the 14th and 17th, 14th to 17th centuries, brought with it Enlightenment values that we now recognize as a civilized human life based on universally recognized human rights. Of course, since the Renaissance, in fact, over the last 100 years, we've had our dark moments as humanity. We fought 2 world wars through most of the last century. Much of the world lived in dire poverty. But the most recent change in the course of human history, arguably, was the end of the Cold War, right? When the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, thereby ending the Cold War, it represented a kind of triumph of democracy, and it set off a wave of democratization around the world that essentially made rights such as freedom from fear, freedom from hunger and deprivation, freedom of expression become widely accepted, that such rights should be the right of every human being, and that we should try to make those rights available to practically every human being in the course of the 21st century. And for a good 30 years since the end of that Cold War, democracy was on the rise and human rights were embraced all around the world. Yet as we look back on the last 10 to 15 years, we can also see that the beginnings in many countries of a trend of hollowing out of democracies, a hijacking of electoral democracies by populists and authoritarian elites, to the point where today many analysts have tabulated that more human beings once again live under authoritarian or semi-authoritarian governments than live under democratic governments that care about humanistic or humanitarian matters. No less than the United States of America, once a beacon for freedom and democracy around the world, only a few months ago dismantled its foreign aid agency, USAID, thereby eliminating around 70 billion US dollars per year of foreign aid. Possibly that program was the single largest humanitarian intervention in human history, and it evaporated practically overnight, leaving millions and probably tens of millions of vulnerable human beings stranded to an uncertain fate. I imagine that some of my fellow speakers might address other alarming aspects of our current period, such as the continuing climate crisis, which continues unabated, while elites around the world backpedal on commitments to reduce carbon emissions. Or they may address some massive humanitarian disasters in places like Gaza or South Sudan. But I was asked to speak about globalization as an opportunity and a challenge for Indonesia. And of course, the answer is that it's both. It's both an opportunity and a challenge, right? I think we're aware of many of the challenges already. And again, my fellow speakers will presumably address them in much more depth and detail, yeah, such as the climate crisis, environmental challenges, frankly, add-on effects from the climate crisis, such as water stress, food security, right, from extreme weather, ruining harvests and making agriculture more difficult. But on top of that, of all that, we now have the additional challenge of artificial intelligence, right? And many analysts have outlined, right, how quite possibly the advent of machine learning and artificial intelligence is likely to be as transformational a moment for human society and human economy as the invention of electricity and electrification in the early 20th century. Yeah. I think probably throughout this conference, there'll be many opportunities to discuss different aspects, of the AI revolution. And the AI revolution's obviously got a lot of coverage in the media already, right? I just want to highlight, one thing which, in my view, is a bit underappreciated, underdiscussed, and that is the extent to which the technological acceleration brought on by AI will actually expedite the day when we effectively merge with our technology. Yes, you heard that right. So what I said is, over the coming 2 or 3 decades, I believe we will, in effect, be merging with our technology. If you think about it, already today, many of us come practically with our smartphones glued to our palms, to the palms of our hands, and to the tips of our fingers. Already today, many people walk around all day with their AirPods or other Bluetooth headsets firmly implanted in their ears. Meta, the social media company, has a massively successful product called the Meta Ray-Ban display glasses. They've just rolled out a new product called the Meta Oakley Meta Vanguard glasses. And it's rumored that technology giant Apple is working on a smart glasses product as well, right? But gradually, very slowly, right, without us even realizing it, actually we're already attaching technology to our bodies, right? Through earbuds, through smart glasses, through smartwatch, right? Even smart rings. And again, this is happening gradually and coming so naturally that we're barely even aware of it, right? I would actually, perhaps in a spirit of being a bit provocative, argue that we're in the process of becoming a different species. Maybe we could call it like sapiens computensis, right? But we're slowly, gradually proceeding down this path, right? So a few risks and opportunities arise from this extraordinary development, right? Again, AI likely to be the most significant technological change since electrification, in the early 20th century. But one risk, right, one clear tendency of this new technology will be to amplify disparity and inequality, right? Highly educated and early adopters of this most advanced technology will essentially become highly enhanced human beings, right? Others who might struggle to access or adopt or use this kind of technology effectively, will struggle even harder, in an environment of globalization that's becoming only more competitive and arguably, again, with the hollowing out of democracies, with the spread of populist and semi-authoritarian governments, and globalization becoming more brutal, more competitive, right? So these newly enhanced humans, right, with AI enhanced technology, what are we going to be, right? What do we want to become as a species? Will our technology make us more ruthless? Will make us more vicious, right? More competitive? Or will we direct our civilizational path in a direction where we use our technology to enhance our empathy, enhance our compassion, right? And take human civilization to new levels of kindness and common understanding, right? And this is where I thought about the role of law and the role of practitioners of law, right? I think more important than ever before, obviously, we use the law for finance, for business, right? To settle civil matters, right? And it's the bread and butter of lawyers and practitioners of law to help us with such matters. But having been through an extraordinary 9-month saga of criminalization and legal jeopardy, and finding a path through the jungle that our legal system has become, right? Again, very brilliantly assisted by many alumni of the law faculty of Universitas Islam Indonesia. I realized, looking back at my experience, that law at its best, right, and lawyers at their best, truly call on our conscience, call on our nurani, right? Remind us of our most noble values, right? Bring us back to our moral roots. And I think it's really opportune that this conference is taking place at Universitas Islam Indonesia. We all know that Indonesia is a religious country. It's the number one ordered item on our 5-item state ideology, Pancasila, right? And at the same time as the end of the Cold War brought the spread of democracy and also the spread of free markets, free market economies that are strongly associated with democracy, it also brought greater and greater secularization, right? And for a long time, I thought that that wasn't a problem. That basically, well, religion is not the only source of morality. But the more we face these increasingly complex challenges, right? And the more we try to dig deeper into the root causes of what's causing all these problems, I think the more we'll discover that at the root of our problems are actually moral failures, right? Failings of morality, like ethical failures. And that's where I think, the law and legal practitioners have such a big role to play. I mean, you are at the forefront of how the law brings justice or fails to bring justice, creates hope or fails to create hope, right? And again, it's easy to get preoccupied with the bread and butter issues, right? Like finishing that contract or negotiating, legal settlements and the like. But again, given where we are as a civilization, and given where we are on the cusp of a transformational change, where again, I sincerely believe it wouldn't be going too far to say that we might be in the process of becoming a new species altogether, right? Enhanced by technology, enhanced by artificial intelligence in ways that are still at the moment hard to imagine. I believe the law at its best and legal practitioners at their best, at your best, have such an important role to play, right? And I'm really interested to see and also learn from all of you, right, in the course of today's proceedings and from the various papers that all of you have submitted, how we can work together, how the legal profession and faculties of law and other participants in the legal sector can collaborate and essentially be a force for moral good, right? And again, I think it's really unique to have law faculty in universities such as Universitas Islam, where we're never going to be far, right? We deliberately try to stay close to our religious values. And so, again, I think we're at a crucial turning point. We're at a crucial juncture in human civilization. Where essentially not only are we, do we have to solve certain crises such as climate change, demographic challenges, environmental difficulties, right, food security. And by the way, I'm generally optimistic that we will solve the climate crisis, that we will overcome, challenges such as food security. But what is far more uncertain is actually what kind of a culture, what kind of a civilization do we want to become, in Indonesia and around the world? Again, do we want to be, a merciless, kind of ruthless, very competitive, very success-oriented, civilization? Or do we want to become a purpose-driven, like morally grounded, compassionate, empathetic, and good-hearted civilization? Now, lastly, I just want to also mention, right, we're also on the cusp of a generational turnover, where essentially people from my generation, for example, and I'm 54 this year, will gradually be mentoring and handing over to the young generation that we know as millennial and Gen Z, and then right behind them are what tentatively we now call Gen Alpha, right? But the younger generation is really what gives me a lot of hope. It's clearly evident, right, from various trends. In the USA, you have this trend among young people called quiet quitting, right, where people disillusioned with work lacking purpose or organizations lacking values, right, quietly withdraw, engagement from their work. In China, even you have a trend called life lab, right, where young workers, young professionals are protesting, again, against the seeming meaninglessness, the seeming lack of purpose, the seeming lack of meaning in life and in professions, by again quietly withdrawing, from work. But I believe that the kind of Americans would call it a rat race, right? Like the sort of vicious competition to get rich quick, right? To be able to show off branded goods, to maximize one's status on social media by posting selfies and wifis in exotic travel destinations and so on. I'm very optimistic that the millennial and Gen Z are at the forefront of leaving behind, those kinds of shallow and materialistic pursuits that ultimately just cause stress, frankly, right, and mental health problems. And I believe the millennials and Gen Z are at the forefront of a trend of society searching for a higher purpose, searching for meaning in life, right? Searching for genuine human connection. And that will be more important than ever before, not only given the alarming trends around the world, again, hollowing out of democracies, spread of semi-authoritarian or authoritarian governments, right? Cynical politics, but also, again, because we're about to merge with our machines. We're about to become hugely enhanced, right? But enhanced for what purpose? And enhanced to run faster, to jump higher, to accelerate economies. But in the process of accelerating our economies, will we then destroy the environment? Perhaps irreparably, right? Or, will our new technologies enable us to reach new levels of compassion, new levels of inspiration, like frankly, re-engage and maybe reconnect, for many of us with our religious values. And again, I think the law at its best and legal practitioners at their best, at your best, are among the key players, yeah, in deciding that future. So with that, I wish everyone a really, really productive and hopefully fun and engaging conference. And once again, thank you so much for this opportunity to share a few thoughts, on this wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tomebong, for your insightful and thought-provoking keynote. And we will now proceed with a brief photo session and giving tokens of appreciations. We kindly invite our Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, to Professor. Yeah. And also the Vice Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, to give the token of appreciation to our to our speakers. Yeah. And to all speakers, to Professor Abu Bakar bin Munir and Ms. Tamalin Bolus, Christopher, Michael Kesson, GD, and Professor Aurelia Colombi Siachi. And also Pak Eko Aryadi, who are joined in Zoom meeting. And also Professor Aurelia Colombi Ciaci that will join with us through Zoom meeting. We invite you to okay, we will start with photo session together. We invite all the leaders to move a little bit to the middle. Yeah. All right. Ready? Countdown and 1, 2, 3. Smile. One more. 1, 2, 3. Big smile. Oh, one more with Mr. Tom Lembong. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Big smile. That's all. Thank you. And we'll continue with giving token of appreciation from of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, all the speakers. To Pak Abu Bakar bin Munir, to Professor Abu Bakar, yeah, with the Dean of Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia, yeah. Okay, thank you. And the next two, and the next one to Ms. Tamalin Bolus, yeah, from ICRC. Another photo session. Okay. And the next one to Christopher Michael Kaysen, GD, our lecturer at Faculty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. And the last one, our moderator, Mr. Eko Riyadi, Mr. Eko Riyadi SHMH. Thank you. That's all for the photo session and also the giving of tokens appreciation. Let's give a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now moving to the heart of today's academic program, the plenary session of expert sharing. This session will be moderated by Eko Riyadi SHMH, lecturer at the Constitutional Law Department and the director of Center of Human Rights Studies, Pusham, Fakulty of Law, Universitas Islam Indonesia. Under the guidance of our moderator, today's session will feature four distinguished experts. To the moderator, the time is yours.
This. Okay, so first of all, I would like to invite the distinguished speakers to join here. Pak Abu Bakar. And then I think Bu Tamalin is in the middle. And then Pak Chris is over there. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. It's so happy to have all of you here, and also it's great for us having distinguished speakers from Malaysia, from South Africa, and the next one is actually Indonesia, but originally coming from United States of America. It's wonderful moment for us to discuss about we can say that the technology is unavoidable things today. It has a lot of influence for our daily life. And then in one side, there is an opportunity to use technology to develop law, to develop good governance, and also but in another side, technology is also having a serious impact for us. And for example, maybe you would like to hear from Ms. Tamalin, for example, in terms of the law and war, for example. Now we have serious situations where, for example, autonomous weapon system is also developed now in so many countries. So in one side, we have to talk, to develop, and also to make sure that technology will help us to solve any kind of social problems and legal problems. But in another side, we have also to make sure that the influence of technology will give us, let's say, a good things, because its impact is also, to some extent, is also dangerous. Okay, so we will have 4 speakers, but will be divided into 2 sessions, because Ibu Aurelia will join after at around 11. So now we will start by 3 speakers. I will invite the first speakers, Bapak Abu Bakar Munir. Bapak Abu Bakar Munir is actually holder of Tun Ismail Chair at the Faculty of Law, University of Malaysia, and he published several books on cyber law, policies and challenges, privacy and data protections, internet banking, law and practice, and so on and so on. So I would like to invite Pak Abu Bakar Munir to present. Your time is approximately 20 minutes. The time is yours, Pak. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning. And first and foremost, I would like to thank the Faculty of Law, University Islam Indonesia, for inviting me to be here and to share my knowledge in this particular area of AI and how AI being implemented in companies around the world. So this is a topic given to me, yeah, so I don't have a choice basically, but I will try to accommodate that, yeah. So business AI and its contemporary challenges. Okay, let's get started with the first slide, please. First slide, please. Okay, this is the agenda, what I'm going to cover in this very short period of time. Smarter, better, faster, and looking at AI's impact on modern business. Then we had heard about the risk mentioned by the keynote address just now by Mr. Thompson. And we will talk about AI risks and challenges, and of course, we have to mitigate and address the challenges and the risks, then some conclusions on terms of my presentation structure. Let's get started with the first slide, please. Okay. Smarter, faster, better, AI's impact on business. And I will cover these areas in terms of cybersecurity, customer relationship management, internet and data research, predictive analytics and forecasting, and supply chain optimizations and EDM or automated decision making. Yeah. So next slide, please. Since we have only 20 minutes to cover. So AI is basically indispensable partner in preventing and avoiding network security threats. AI system can recognize cyber attacks and cybersecurity threats by monitoring data input patterns, and after detecting a threat, it can backtrack through our data and to find the source and help preventing future threats. And I give some figures produced by IBM here. And you can just click that link. You can see the full report about the fact that AI can save a lot of money in terms of trying to protect your system, to protect your data. As compared to without using AI. And the second part is, of course, CRM, customer relationship management. What are the benefits using AI? Hyper-personalized customer engagement. This is undeniable. Yeah. Productive insight forecasting and forecasting. Intelligence automation. Conversational AI for support and sales. Enhanced data marketing automations. Strategic decision, again, using AI analytics in terms of CRM. Yeah. Internet and data research, this is very much proven. Automated data collection. We can use AI to collect data without human interference. Intelligence, information extraction, faster and deeper search, real-time insight and trend detection. Yeah. Automated summaries and report, conversational research assistant. We can even appoint agent to interact with our customers and with our buyers. A knowledge graph, predictive analysis or analytics, quality control and reliability scoring, and of course the major efficiency gains is reduces manual research time by up to 70%. So when we compare human and AI, human can do better in terms of research and other things. Predictive analytics and forecasting. AI transform predictive analysis and forecasting by enabling real-time forecasting, higher accuracy, deep pattern recognition, again ADM, scalable enterprise-wide intelligence, and of course continuous improvement. Yeah. Next slide, please. Supply chain optimization. AI optimizes supply chain by enabling real-time visibility, accurate forecasting, dynamic inventory management, smart routing, risk prediction, automated operations, and scenario planning. So AI has actually shift supply chain from reactive, predictive to autonomous, just like autonomous vehicle mentioned by Mr. Moderator. Yeah? Next slide, please. Now, automated decision making, ADM, this is a bit controversial. Yeah? In the area of data protection, this is controversial. In other areas, also controversial. Yeah? AI enhances ADM by enabling speed. Decisions are instantaneous, reducing delays, very consistent. It eliminates human bias or fatigue in routine decisions. Yeah, we have to make a decision every time. We have to make a decision, so that can lead to what we call as decision fatigue. Yeah, and then handles massive volumes of decisions simultaneously. Adaptability, that AI models can continuously improve as they learn from new data. So when we talk about AI, we are talking about data, data, and data. So what are the risks and challenges using AI in business organizations? First is, of course, strategic and operational risks. AI may produce results that do not align with the business goals. Yeah? Then then we have financial risks. AI employment requires significant investment in technology, talent, and in infrastructure, and the benefit may be uncertain. Yeah? And it's not that we expect, perhaps. Data and technical risks. AI systems are vulnerable to attacks. Yeah? It can help companies to enhance their cybersecurity, but on the other hand, it can also increase the risk of cyber attacks. And in fact, it becomes a honeypot, basically. You know, honeypot meaning that people are more attracted to attack your system because of volumes of data that you are keeping in your organization and companies. Legal and compliance risks, ensuring AI system meet evolving legal standards. In EU, for example, there is an AI Act that has been implemented. Around the world, regulators are coming up with the regulations, yeah? And if you look at data protection authorities around the world, they have issued several guidelines in Singapore, in China, in Canada, in other parts of the world, yeah? Ethical and reputational risks, AI decision impacting hiring, lending, and marketing may be unfair, okay? That can lead to reputational damage, bias, and discrimination. This is the most concern in terms of AI application. The decision is biased, or it can discriminate someone based on, you know, factors like age, nationalities, and other things. Yeah, you can imagine if you are submitting, for example, an application for loan, and based on your loan application, machine make decision that you are not entitled to the loan offered by the bank without human interference. And that is one of the concerns of the customers, or in the context of data protection, we call it data subject. Yeah? Market and competitive risks. Falling behind in AI adoption can result in competitive disadvantage, lack of skill, on AI professional can limit implementation or innovation. And of course, the other thing is about social and cultural challenges. Users may resist AI due to fear, misunderstanding, or ethical concern. Um, and that can impact basically the AI application or the AI system. Okay, so those are the risks in terms of AI in the business organizations. Yeah? Next slide, please. How to mitigate the risk? How to mitigate the risk? Perhaps some of you, this is something new. AI impact assessment or AIIA, AI impact assessment. Before you use any system or before you develop any AI system, ideally you should do assessment on the impact or the potential impact of the AI on your customer, on your basically employees. If you are planning to employ AI to monitor your employees, for example. So basically you have to conduct artificial impact assessment before you install or even before you develop. If you are an AI company, you have to consider this AI, IA or artificial impact assessment. And ISO, International Standard Organizations, has come up with the ISO 42001 and 42005, basically giving guidelines how to conduct artificial, AIIA, artificial intelligent impact assessment. So I repeat, yeah, if you are interested, you can go and do further research. ISO 42001 and ISO 42005. I'm not the agent of ISO, but it's quite useful. I've read the document. Then I think it's very useful for companies who ventures into AI. Data protection impact assessment, DPIA. This is required by some legislations. In Indonesia, you have PDP, and perhaps you may not know that I was one of the drafters of PDP Indonesia. I was a consultant to the consultant developing the PDP Indonesia. I was also responsible developing PDPA Malaysia. And I was consulted by the Ministry of Interior in Saudi back in 2000 something when they were developing the first draft of Saudi PDPA or Personal Data Protection Law. I was in Brunei 2 weeks ago, and then I was in Cambodia after that to assess the law that has been developed by the Cambodian government on PDP. So what I'm trying to say is that AI is about data, data, and data. And because of that, data protection law plays a crucial role in terms of trying to, or giving the rules how to mitigate AI. Yeah? Observe data protection law requirements. Yeah? If you are using AI to process data, especially personal data, either your customers or your staff, you have to observe the law. So in Indonesia, for example, PDPA or PDPR requires DPIA. PDPR requires ADM, automated decision making. Okay, that's what I mean by observing data protection law requirements. Regularly audit AI models for bias and fairness. Define clear business goal and align AI KPIs with strategic priorities. Involve stakeholders in the design phase. Then maintain human oversight and decision-making authority. Because, as I said many times, one of the main concerns is that allowing machine to make decisions without any human interference. That's the most basically contentious issues as far as AI is concerned. Allowing machine to make decision which is significant to customers or staff without any human interference. Zero interference from human being. So that's the main concern as far as AI is concerned, yeah, and data protection is concerned. And of course, implement AI as a support tool rather than a replacement. Yeah, we start with pilot projects, yeah, if possible, impact areas. If you want to start AI, for example, you should be able to assess which areas in your organization that to be given a priority before implementing AI for the whole organizations. Yeah? Set realistic expectation, measure outcomes continuously, and adjust AI strategies as needed. Enable data governance policies. This is, again, another interesting issues that we have to address. Yeah? Ensure data is accurate, complete, and representative. Stay updated on relevant laws, implement compliance check, and seek legal guidance on AI use. Define accountability clearly in contracts and internal policies, maintain logs of AI decision for transparency. Yeah? What is important is that the bottom line is transparency, accountability. If you use AI, you have to be able to explain. So basically 3 elements, yeah? Transparency, explainability, and accountability. These are the 3 basic bottom line that we have to take into account when we adopt AI in our business or system. You have to be able to explain your decision. You have to be able to be accountable, meaning that you should be accept, responsibility. You should accept responsibility. Okay, and of course there are other measures that we can do before we embark into AI or before you develop AI system. Is it time? Okay, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, perhaps we can have a discussion on that. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Abu Bakar. So you talk about the AI and its impact on business and so on and so on. So in Indonesia, Pak, we now working for the issue of spyware. Because there is no specific rule in Indonesia on how to buy spyware, and we Indonesians know that all of our data is vulnerable for being taken by the government or by a certain group of, let's say, business, for example. So that our data is actually very vulnerable. Now we are trying to develop new regulations, but it's still starting. Okay, thank you, Pak Abu Bakar. And then the next, we will have Ibu Tamalin, that is originally from South Africa, but now she was the legal advisor for ICRC Jakarta office, covering Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and several countries in South Asia, including Afghanistan. So I saw some Afghanistan students here. So if you have something to be clarified to Ibu Tamalin, you have a time. So I would like to invite Ibu Tamalin. Your time is 20 minutes. Thank you.
Selamat pagi. Saya Tamlin, Dini ICRC, or the International Committee of the Red Cross. I'm really sorry that I don't speak Indonesian, but I am belajaring it. And hopefully next time we meet each other, I will be able to speak to you in Indonesian. But yes, so my presentation is quite different from AI and business, so a bit of a transition to another area of law that is, I would argue equally as important, And in fact, some of the comments that were shared by my colleague on the panel, in fact, are replicated in international humanitarian law and the contemporary challenges that we see today. So a quick question to the room. I know this is a bit unusual. How many of you in the room are aware of international humanitarian law? Anyone? No one? Gami, thank you, thank you. International humanitarian law is the international legal framework that deals with the conduct or how wars are fought. So it's a body of law that applies to conflict situations. And that in and of itself is quite extraordinary. How can law be abided by in a context where essentially everything is falling apart? So my remarks this morning really focus on the importance of this body of law, the importance of international humanitarian law, and then some of the contemporary challenges that we as the ICRC are faced by this body of law today. But I was quite inspired by the keynote address, and I think it's particularly true, even when we think of the challenges we see in contemporary armed conflicts today, that it also provides us with some opportunities for change. And I think this is incredibly important because the objective of international humanitarian law is to reduce the suffering of persons who are not participating in conflict situations. So perhaps if you allow me to share a few reflections just to shape our discussion this morning. If we think about the world today, when you turn on the news, we are confronted by so many different conflicts taking place across the world, from Sudan to Ukraine to Gaza, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We really see that conflict is carving or having an impact on the lives of millions of people across the world. The Geneva Conventions of 1949, which is essentially the bedrock, the foundation of international humanitarian law, have saved countless lives and ensured that the devastating effects of warfare are there to respect and protect thousands of persons, thousands of detainees, to ensure that medical patients are attended to. While international humanitarian law does not prevent war, this body of law has nothing to say about the legality on the use of force. Its strict application helps to reduce the brutality of conflict and create sustainable pathways to peace. I want us to imagine for a moment the pictures that you see on your screen when you turn on the news, the suffering that you see of victims of conflict. Now, for a moment, imagine what the world would look like if IHL was in fact respected. Civilians would be shielded from attacks and indiscriminate violence. Hospitals and medical workers would remain sanctuaries for the wounded and sick, not targets or pawns in conflict situations. Humanitarian aid would reach those in desperate need without obstruction or delay. Prisoners of war and detainees would be treated with dignity and compassion. Respect for IHL would pave a path to peace, reconciliation, and recovery. Yet today, the reality is deeply concerning. Despite the universal ratification of the Geneva Conventions, so the bedrock of international humanitarian law, violations of fundamental humanitarian norms are widespread. This is perhaps the most stark challenge for international humanitarian law today. Ongoing conflicts around the globe, from urban centers to rural villages or at sea, are causing devastating humanitarian suffering and displacement. Attacks on civilian infrastructure, hospitals, and humanitarian workers are all too frequent. The human, social, economic, and environmental costs of these violations are unsustainable, and indeed, we face a risk of historical magnitude if we do not reverse the current trajectory of how wars are being fought. We really are dealing with quite a stark reality. And this is particularly relevant as for the ICRC, we estimate that currently there are 130 armed conflicts worldwide today. 130. So this is beyond what you see on the news. And this, in reality, relates and translates into additional human suffering. I'd like now to turn to some specific challenges that we see, but also keeping in mind this idea that they also present to us opportunities. Since 2003, the International Committee of the Red Cross has produced a report every 4 years that deals with the challenges or the contemporary challenges of international humanitarian law. Now, the International Committee of the Red Cross is particularly well placed to provide a report like this because our mandate is to work in situations of conflict across the world. The ICRC has been in existence for over 160 years. So we've seen on the ground many different conflicts over 100 years. So we have quite a familiarity with this body of law, but then the challenges as well. So every 4 years we produce a report. It's called the Challenges Report. And it really speaks to the challenges we see in contemporary armed conflicts and the opportunities or how we think we should be addressing these contemporary challenges. The report last year had an overarching theme, and the theme was that we need to build respect for international humanitarian law. And perhaps over the many challenges reports that we've produced, this theme remains the one that is in every single report, generating greater respect for the law. So yes, there are contemporary challenges such as AI, cyber warfare, for example, but since 2003, the overarching challenge has and will always be generating greater respect for this body of law. Other issues that are highlighted in the report include nuclear weapons, the use of nuclear weapons, how the law applies to this particular weapon, clarifying notions around hybrid warfare or proxy warfare, so really legal terminology, how we can ensure protection of persons, detainees, the separated, missing or dead, how we can ensure that separated children are reunited with their families, and how to protect diverse persons. We also have a section dedicated to how wars are fought, so the conduct of hostilities, and particularly the impact that it has on the environment. How do we ensure that hospitals are protected, medical facilities are respected, that there's adequate food security, and how, again, to ensure the limit of the use of weapons used, such as anti-personnel mines. We also have a whole section dedicated to new technologies of warfare. So how does IHL, this body of law, apply to artificial intelligence? How can we ensure that weapons that are autonomous still are used in a way that doesn't attack civilians, that ensures the protection of children? So a lot of new thinking about how technology is used on the battlefield today, but to ensure that law that was negotiated over 70 years ago is still applicable. And then really importantly, how to ensure the protection of humanitarian workers. So my colleagues who work across the world, how to ensure they are protected from attack when they are providing assistance to the people who need it the most. And then, of course, how to ensure greater compliance with this body of law. Today, many people, many states, many organizations believe that international humanitarian law is at a crossroads. As the challenges grow, the world has to decide how to reaffirm a strong and effective commitment to respecting IHL. Driven by this urgent situation, in 2024, the ICRC, along with 6 other states, including Brazil, China, France, Jordan, Kazakhstan, and South Africa, came together to form and to launch what is called the Global Initiative to galvanize political commitment to international humanitarian law. This is an exceptional effort. It's an initiative that it's the first of its kind for both the ICRC and for states that really seeks to respond to these challenges we see today. So the ones that I've outlined to you already, but more specifically to really galvanize political will to ensure the implementation of this body of law on the ground. This initiative is open to all nations and really seeks to reinvigorate hope and combat indifference. The primary goal of this initiative is to elevate international humanitarian law to be a political priority at a global, regional, and national level. It also seeks to refocus the debate on international humanitarian law to really inspire and encourage states to reaffirm their commitment to international humanitarian law. The Geneva Conventions have universal ratification, and that's incredibly important because what it says is that every state in the world believes that this body of law is necessary because of the protections that it offers. So it's not a hard reach to ask states to reaffirm their commitment to this body of law. What the initiative seeks to achieve is, again, to have 7 work streams which highlight particular challenges which we, as the ICRC and the founding states of this initiative, believe to be challenges that we can offer solutions to, that we can provide possibilities to change. The first cluster of work streams really revolves around how to ensure greater respect for international humanitarian law. So how do we prevent violations from occurring before conflict starts? Training, education. How do we encourage academics and the future leaders of tomorrow to understand what international humanitarian law is? How do we ensure that there are national formations, like a national international humanitarian law committee that can be a mechanism to encourage states at a domestic level to ensure that this body of law is respected and developed? And then how can we see the linkages between international humanitarian law and peace? What conversation can we have? How can we ensure that IHL is included in mediation and negotiation strategies? The second cluster speaks to more thematic challenges. These relate to, for instance, protection of civilian infrastructure, the use of information communication technology, so again, issues of cyber warfare, of AI. How can we have discussions with states to ensure that IHL is applied and respected when these forms of, or these methods of warfare are used? There is also a work stream dedicated to protection of hospitals, protection of civilian infrastructure, and then really importantly for Indonesia is naval warfare and international humanitarian law. It's important for Indonesia because the Indonesian government has signed up as a co-chair, so they play an incredibly important role in this work stream and in this initiative in guiding states in the application of IHL when it comes to naval warfare or conflict at sea. The outcomes of these work streams really seek to offer recommendations on how we can offer solutions or what possibilities exist to overcome these challenges that we see in contemporary conflict today. Over 90 states have joined the initiative so far, which is really encouraging, and the initiative will come to an end at the end of next year. So what I've shared with you today is a brief outline of quite substantive challenges. I haven't gone into the legal nitty-gritties or technicalities of them. All the information related to the challenges report, to the Global IHL initiative are all available on the website of the International Committee of the Red Cross. But I thought I would just take this opportunity to show you the vast list of challenges that exist for this body of law and the efforts that we are undertaking to try and achieve some solutions to take them off of the challenges list. I'm going to stop here, but perhaps just to end on the fact that disregard for international humanitarian law for all of us, regardless if we are in a situation of conflict or not, must be overcome. And it's really important for every one of us to understand this body of law, and I encourage you to engage and understand more about international humanitarian law and the way that it works and the way that it seeks to really provide guideposts for those who are suffering due to armed conflict. So I'll leave it there, and perhaps during the discussion we have some questions and answers. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Malin. Mr. Malin just talk about the challenges that we face now. There are so many conflicts all over the world. The conflict is still growing and growing, and then so now we can imagine and also recognize that the existence of the ICRC is very, let's say, very good, and we need the existence of ICRC to make sure that the state all over the world will respect and also using their domestic mechanism to make sure that they respect international humanitarian law. But also that is I think that is the challenges, the most challenges that we face now. Okay, so the next speakers will be Pak Chris. Pak Christopher is actually a lecturer at the Law Faculty of Islamic University of Indonesia. He is an expert on international business law, if I'm not mistaken. I would prefer to introduce Pak Christopher as Indonesians because he loves Indonesia and I know he loves Indonesians. Even though he is actually from United States of America. You have 20 minutes, Pak Chris. You can start now. Thank you, Pak.
So, Assalamualaikum, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Took me a long time to memorize that. Thank you, Pak Eko, for introducing me. And thank you to my fellow speakers, Abu Bakar, Ms. Bolon. Also to our Tom Lembong, who couldn't be here today, as well as Ms. Chechi. I also appreciate the invitation from our Honorable Dean, Pak Budi, also from Agus Trianti and Ms. Sefriani, Professor Sefriani, for inviting me here. I appreciate the invitation because, yes, they are tired of hearing from me many times. And thank you also for the introduction as an expert in business law. I'm actually really humbled to be here. I appreciate all of you coming. I know you're from all corners of the world, Afghanistan, Nigeria, South Africa, Malaysia, and I really appreciate all the different perspectives you have, as well as all the people from the different parts of Indonesia, not just Java. So a little bit about what I'd like to talk about today. So maybe if you could move on to the sort of overview slide, the next slide, please. Again, I've been introduced. I'm not going to talk about America or anything like that for today. I will be Indonesian for today. But I was very fortunate to have the opportunity a little time ago to be invited to an Indonesian company. And the Indonesian company was planning to expand into, it had been a contractor for, extractive industries. And it was asking me to help it, as it was expanding abroad, to help it develop a human rights and anti-modern slavery policy. And when I went there, they were very resistant. They said, we're in the business of making money. And so why do human rights, why does modern slavery, how does that affect us as business people? And so it really informed my preparation for today's, this short presentation today about foreign investment in this idea of having clean hands, and how foreign investment and how businesses have been sort of delegated the responsibility for solving some of these human rights problems that NGOs and governments and individuals can't. And so from that standpoint, I'd like to talk a little bit about foreign investment And in particularly a very interesting case, or at least interesting to geeks like me who like foreign bilateral investment treaties, the Churchill Mining versus Indonesia case, which I think sort of encapsulates how business can affect human rights, as well as how Indonesia can navigate moving from a developing country to a developed country who is investing abroad. And we'll get into some of the technicalities of the law as well as we go through this. So maybe next slide, please. So really quickly, there's this increase in emerging economies. And like I said, Indonesia, this one particular business, was looking to expand abroad. And I think Indonesia is sort of transitioning from a target country of investment to an investor itself. Private firms are expanding abroad. There's this cross-border transaction led by Chris, however you pronounce it, and this new sovereign wealth. Okay. And essentially, they're designed to make it safer to invest abroad. Okay. Investing abroad is risky for a number of reasons that you can imagine: unstable governments, different political systems, changes in the law, etc. And so, essentially, when you invest abroad, you're sort of guaranteed that you'll be treated fairly and equitably as an investor, and that the government isn't going to seize your property, or in fancy legal terms, expropriate your property. And these are some of the protections we have. We also have the insurance, the multilateral investment guarantee, MIGA, which offers basically buying insurance on your investment, and some other protections as well. But essentially, it's still a risky proposition. And on top of that, we have the government's concern of protecting its own people, protecting its natural resources, protecting its human resources, protecting its territorial sovereignty, especially a concern in post-colonial countries that see foreign investment sometimes as the second coming of colonialization. And so all of these concerns are encapsulated in this bilateral investment treaty regime. And part of the jurisprudence on settling disputes in investments is this common law thing we call clean hands. And next slide, please. So this doctrine of clean hands, and it's very small print, I apologize. It's a common law idea it's a common law idea, and it's somewhat complicated, but it makes sense. If you go to the court asking for something, asking the court to do something, you've got to have what we call clean hands yourself. Essentially, most common law jurisdictions employ this, and it has now, like a lot of other common law things like estoppel, have sort of moved from common law to international law. And sometimes a good way, sometimes an awkward way. But essentially, if you are facing, or a government is facing an accusation, they can counter with the fact that the accuser does not have clean hands. They've done something wrong as well. I don't want to say, as the little children say, well, what about you? I did this, but what did you do? That's not really the idea. the idea is that both parties should be playing on a level playing field. And this comes into play especially when dealing with our sustainability goals, one of them being the environment, one of them being human rights, fair, equitable treatment of all people, respect for governments, etc. This sort of clean hands could be an overarching doctrine as well. It's been used for, we call it injunctions, equitable relief, asking the judge to do something and not just pay them money is where this generally comes into play. I'll give you a couple examples before we move on. Next slide, please. These are just a couple of cases where plaintiffs or applicants have tried to seek relief in the courts and they've been denied. So for example, somebody who has wanted the money that they were entitled to, but had already been misusing the money they'd been given, part of an account. An American case. A British case where a tenant was being evicted from and their lease was voided. They wanted to stay where they were living, but they were not entitled to relief because they were using the house in an immoral way. At least it was immoral for 1956. And of course, the classic case where two criminals rob a stagecoach full of gold on the way from one place to another. And the criminals got in a fight, and one of them went to court to actually sue his fellow criminal. Where's my half of the profits from our crime? And they were denied. Again, an extreme but sort of stereotypical example. How it's been applied internationally has been a little bit broader. So next slide, please. So in international cases, next slide. The one that says international on it. So in international cases, it's been applied mostly in cases of bad faith, where one party comes to the international body, in some cases the ICJ, and says, we want relief, and the court rejects that because they haven't acted in good faith or with good intent to begin with. It's basically a defense. In legal terms, we'll say, and it's affirmative defense. There's cases in Canada where the government was held liable despite the bad acts of the Canadian company, where the court refused to apply the doctrine of clean hands. And again, like many parts of our common law, international law is slow to adopt. And so, that's why there's a dissenting opinion regarding this case, because often the first step towards incorporating it into international law is through dissenting opinions. And again, we're familiar with the case in Palestine where Israel tried to attempt and was denied the legal defense of clean hands. So I'd like to move on then to the next slide and talk about this case of Churchill Mining. Next slide, please. Let's go to the next slide after this. So Churchill Mining, on the map, you'll see the East Kutai Regency. Basically, these investors from both United Kingdom and Australia they wanted to exploit the natural resources of Indonesia, the plentiful natural resources of Indonesia, coal in particular. Next slide, please. So basically, these investors from United Kingdom and investors from Australia formed a company with local Indonesian. I use air quotes a lot in my presentation. I'm going to use the word acquired because part of the controversy was how they acquired these mining permits. So they acquired these permits from the local government. That was between 2006 and 2008. They explored and they found a lot of coal. A huge coal deposit worth millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, actually. They said the value was about 1.3 billion US dollars in coal deposits. Once this coal deposit were discovered, it turns out that the licenses that were issued were forgeries. And again, some of you are familiar with this case as Indonesians, so I'm oversimplifying it, but it was discovered they were forged. And so in 2010, these mining permits were revoked by the government. Of course, next slide, please. The UK and Australians were not very happy, so they said, we're going to sue and try to force the Indonesian government to reissue permits that we were entitled to. Procedurally, it started off in Indonesian courts, went all the way from Samarinda to the Jakarta Court of Appeals, all the way to the Supreme Court, in which Indonesia won that it was entitled to rescind these mining permits. They then went to ICSID. ICSID, the International Court for Settlement of Investment Disputes, basically the body that handles disputes over bilateral investment treaties. It's an arbitration panel. The arbitration panel found that, yes, Indonesia and the Regency of East Kutai possibly didn't act in complete compliance with the law. Okay? There was always some issue of their actions. During the arbitration, the local police arrested potential witnesses and put them in jail so they couldn't testify before the arbitration panel. There was a lot of, it's a really interesting story, which I don't have time to go into today, but it's a really interesting story. But it all culminated in 2016 in an ICSID award in favor of Indonesia. So it denied the foreign claims by the UK and Australia, and it awarded 9.3 million US dollars to the Indonesian government, just in the costs that they incurred going through this process. 2019, the annulment or the appeal of the arbitration award was denied. So next slide, please. There was, of course, claims, cross-accusations. Churchill claimed that it was not just a coincidence that the mining permits were revoked after it became apparent that the mines were going to be worth a lot of money. And they also said they relied on their partners. Okay, they used local Indonesians specifically for the purpose of, making sure they didn't run afoul of the law. And they didn't participate in this forgery process. Indonesia claimed, as I say, successfully, that Churchill came without clean hands. They knew what was going on. They knew how they got the permits, or at least they, hear no evil, see no evil. They willfully blind in legal terms of what was going on. And also that this had already been adjudicated. So what can we take away from this? In my last 43 seconds, if you go to my last slide, please. There's vindication of the Indonesian legal system. it really showed that a country like Indonesia, who has often in its history been the target of exploitation, exploiting its labor, exploiting its human resources, from its colonialization back to the new era where there was constantly basically selling out the people in order to bring money into Indonesia. It really showed that there's a level playing field. It also, however, and I'll wind up soon, it also, however, created some legal uncertainty. Okay? There's this fear now that investment in Indonesia, and investment based on this precedent, is going to be more expensive. And so, again, we're back to this balancing act. What is industry? What is businesses' obligation? Okay? Again, we don't start businesses to help people. Businesses, as my client said a couple weeks ago, we are not an NGO. We are not the ICRC. We are not, that's not our goal. Our goal is to make as much money as possible. And so, you know, what can we as lawyers and citizens and governments do to internalize those externalities in economic terms, these externalities of human rights abuses, et cetera? How can we internalize those and make them costs that businesses have to account for? So in my conclusion, last slide, please. In conclusion, the clean hands doctrine is here to stay, and it seems to be expanding. It's something that has to be considered. So from a legal standpoint, it's not just procedural, it also goes to the substance of a claim or a dispute. And it requires a lot more diligence. It puts a lot more burden, much higher burden on businesses who want to invest abroad. And to make sure they're protecting the environment, to make sure they're following the law and not skirting the law or exploiting the people. And again, this goes for Indonesia as it goes from the investee to the investor. And as its government transitions, it's something that it has to keep in mind along with its history. So thank you very much. I apologize for that I talked too fast, and I tried to get as much information in 20 minutes as I could. Thank you very much. I look forward to your questions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Pak Chris. From public law perspective, under human right law, now we develop in Indonesia, because it's actually it's a normal practice under German constitutional court practices. We call it as horizontal effect of human rights. So human rights is not only govern the relations between the state and the citizens, but also govern the relations between the citizens and also the corporations. Okay, we still have times. I think it's enough for us. We still have approximately 50 minutes for discussions while waiting for Ibu Aurelia joining at around 12. So I would like to invite you to give a comment or ask any questions. Please try to be clear when asking question or delivering a comment, and please also say intended to whom your question is. Okay, so I would like to, six persons. Number 1, number 2, 3, 4. From the spot, is there any? 5. Okay, 6, you. So we will start from the right side. Please introduce your name, and also I think it's also interesting if you can share where do you come from.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Muhammad Tahir Yahya. I am from Nigeria. My questions, I think, is multifaceted, and I have some little comments, and from there I have some questions. To the first speaker, distinguished first speaker, I would like to commend the presentation, but I like the aspect where you were speaking about AI, that is all about data and data and data. But my own aspect of the observation is regarding research, academic research. So we have several AI detectors currently there. But my own personal experience of this is where the AI detectors try to flag even your personal contribution in the research. You will have a personal contribution in research, your personal writing, and it will actually flag it as an AI detector. So in this type of case, how do I claim or own up my original write-up? Because I am very sure, in fact, I'm double sure that it is not AI. It is not AI framed sentence. If it is my sentence, how do I own it up from AI? That is one. And two, when AI steals your original data, how do you seek redress from this? Because we have several AI detectors going on now. I don't know if the Mr. Presenter will share his experience, vast experience regarding this aspect of AI. And to the distinguished second speaker, is it clear enough?
Could you please make it more clear, the question is?
Yeah, my question goes through AI. You know, we have this, if you finish writing a research, you will have to put it through, let's say, Turnitin and other several AI detectors so that it will help you access whether you are writing on your own or you are writing by AI.
Okay.
So in this case, there are a situation where you will write on your own and still it will be shown, or it will be flagged by AI that it is an AI material or resource.
Okay.
Which is very confusing to me. It is very confusing and it is very troubling to see that I write something and AI is still flagging it as its own.
Oh.
So how do you own up this data? Or how do you claim that this write-up is mine, not his?
Okay, so it's kind of conflict between writers and AI
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
the detections of the articles.
For researchers. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So, and then for the second speaker, can I go on?
Yeah.
For the distinguished second speaker, I think it's settled that IHL have a robust legal provisions and frameworks to protect victims of war and other vulnerables. However, the question is, what are really the consequences of breaking or non-compliance for these humanitarian laws? What are the consequences of breaking these laws, especially regarding the belligerent states involved? Because what we have noticed times without number is the breakage of this law. And what really is your suggestion? What are you actually recommending in this type of scenario? And again, lastly, for the third speaker, in the light of foreign direct investment, I want to know because I came from the UK jurisdiction, we were colonized by the British, and I really love the idea where you talked about the clean hands maxims or doctrine. So the question is, what will be the legal basis for the clean hands doctrine in international investment law? Is it a general principle of law, or a rule of customary international law, or a treaty obligation? How do you categorize this in international investment law? And what type of misconduct can trigger the clean hands doctrine, especially when you talk about foreign direct investment? Is it only in cases of fraud, or less or higher, forms of misconduct? How do you categorize them, and in what type of cases are these clean hands doctrine reflected? Thank you very much for your listening.
Okay, thank you. The next. I thought I know you.
Yes, of course.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
please.
Yeah, let me introduce myself. My name is Meika Arista. I'm from Indonesia. I have two questions today. Thank you so much for the opportunity at first. And the first questions, maybe a licensed lawyer practicing in criminal law since 2018. And since 2019, I involved in existing indigenous people in Papua regarding to the, PT Freeport Indonesia, where do mining business in the area. And since 2019 that I first come to Timika, Papua, and also Tembagapura, I see a lot of human rights violations right there. The indigenous people is not have the right to get the environments things, the water, and also the life. The PT Freeport Indonesia also violating the regulations in Indonesia. And also there are a lot of cases that, well known as SLAP, strategic lawsuit against public participations. And there are a lot of indigenous people or indigenous group or indigenous community in Indonesia that also, have a lot of things from this big company, from the, foreign company that that try to, exploit the area itself. So what do you think about the SLAP itself? The SLAP cases in Indonesia regarding to the human rights of the indigenous people and also the tribal people that living in the area of the mining business itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meika. Omida? Sini mas, depan. Paling depan, paling depan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance. This is Umida Kazimi, Master Study Student in Law, University of Islam Indonesia. My question is related to the second speaker, Ms. Blows. I'm afraid that I'm making mistake in pronunciation. Sorry for that. As you said, the nature of the warfare is changing nowadays. One of these is integration of the AI in weapons or military field. That the ICRC recommend and urge for some legally binding treaty to just ban unpredictable use of unpredictable weapons, and especially those who target human autonomously. In practice, what kind of policy ICRC recommend, and how state can implement this kind of policies to make sure that there is a human meaningful control over this kind of weapons and prevent unlawful harm in modern AI-driven conflict. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's clear questions about autonomous weapon system. Tadi siapa ya? Saya lupa. Di ya belakangnya.
Check. Thank you very much for opportunity. My name is Muhammad Nurif Kamirullah. I'm student from Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta. I have question directly for Professor Abu Bakar about the personal data. My question is, in your view, in your
Nurifki, it's time for you, Bubu.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to our distinguished speakers for the enlightenment. So my name is Bubu. I'm from Nigeria. My question will be directed to the second speaker, Tamalin Ma'am. So it's regarding the ongoing looming World War III, as I like to call it. So as we know that it is now obvious that IHL is continuously being violated by parties of armed conflict, and especially when it is related to civilians who are not directly involved in the conflict, which is like the core of what IHL stands for. So my question is, ICRC as the embodiment of IHL, what are the efforts that has been made to stop this continued violation of IHL in regards to the protection of civilians? Thank you.
Thank you, Bubu. Very strong questions. No. We have another. Yeah, there.
Check. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Febri and I have two questions. The first question is in the context of globalization and human rights, the movement of data from one country to another has become very common. And then because these transfers must follow the adequacy principle, how can we determine or assess whether the country receiving the data provides a level of data protection that is sufficiently similar and acceptable to the country sending the data? That's my first question. And then the second one is, considering the structure of the US legislative and regulatory system, is it possible for United States establish a comprehensive umbrella law that functions as a foundational legal framework, such as if in Indonesia, our Data Protection Act or Environmental Act? And then because as far as I know, United States are using sectoral approach rather than comprehensive approach in arranging their acts. That's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Febri. I know this is your final.
Yes.
Okay, so since so many questions raised to Pa Abu Bakar, I think yeah. Okay, Pa Abu Bakar, please respond to the questions.
Thank you so much for the questions asked. First question is about how to differentiate. I mean, if you produce something using AI and you are producing something using your brain, how do we define or how we differentiate, works that have been produced by AI and your work? Based on my experience, because I was a lecturer, I'm still a lecturer, I would be able to differentiate. I mean, whether this is from ChatGPT or the original work of my students, because Chris will agree with me, I think, because we can see the whole thing, basically, the sentence structure, the word use, and everything. I mean, if you are experienced enough, you should be able to tell whether this is from ChatGPT or from, a student, yeah? And I'm not saying that you cannot use AI to come up with your work. You have to use AI to assist you, and you should take the advantage of, AI to come up with the work. But I think producing your work using AI 100% is not okay, that is actually prohibited in many countries around the world. It's not your work, yeah? But it's not wrong perhaps to use AI. And because of this fact, many universities around the world have started recognizing AI as long as you can acknowledge this is from which part. This is your work. This part of your thesis is from you. This is from ChatGPT or whatever AI that you are using or chatbot you are using. So as I said, many universities have recognized that kind of arrangement. Yeah, as long as you acknowledge this part is yours, this part is ChatGPT, this part is from other sources. Yeah, so I think that is one of the mechanism or ways to address this issue. Yeah, but as a lecturer, we should be able to know whether this is original from the students or from ChatGPT. Yeah. I didn't get your second questions. Perhaps we can have a private conversation. If you are free, we can talk, because I didn't really get your question, second one. Yeah? Huh? Okay. I think the same thing. The issue is the same. Whether you can differentiate human beings' works or AI works. Okay? So, second question is about, is a very general question. How do we manage technology, yeah, in whatever ways that we do? I think, I think the bottom line is simple. Whatever we do using technology, it has to be within the parameters of the law. Yeah. So if you are using drone, for example, you mentioned about drone to collect data. So if it's involved personal data, of course, the law on data protection will apply. Whatever technologies you use, either drone or AI, if it involves personal data, the law will be applicable to you. So you have to follow, you have to observe the principle. For example, if you are using drone in certain areas, yeah, and you manage to capture images of individual running or walking on the street, basically you are collecting personal data. So you should observe the rules in the personal data regulations or personal data law. Yeah. So that is the comment I can make. Then the third one is about the right to privacy. If I'm not mistaken, the Pancasila Constitution, the Constitution of Indonesia, does provide the right to privacy, implicitly or explicitly. I'm not so sure. Yeah, but there is a provision in the Constitution providing for the right to privacy. But I can't remember offhand which provision. I can't remember, but there is, because I was involved in assisting Cominfo in developing the law, and I remember correctly, there is a provision in the Constitution of Indonesia providing for the right to privacy. Yeah, but of course, in many countries, it's not specifically mentioned. Yeah, so of course, the concept of privacy is very broad. Yeah, when we talk about privacy, it's very broad. It involves the right to life, the right to physical, right to space. When we talk about data protection, it confines to data privacy, personal data. So that's the difference. And that is the difference. So the other one is about data transfer. Around the world, yeah, if you look at data protection laws around the world, normally there will be provisions on data transfer, meaning that before you transfer data to outside the country, you have to fulfill certain obligations, or you have to make sure that the transfer is in accordance with the law of that country. So I think in Indonesia you have provisions di dalam the Undang-Undang PDP. I can't remember the exact provisions, but basically it says you have to see whether the recipient, yeah, the recipient is located in a country which have law. So we have to see whether that country has a law to protect the data. If not, you have to enter into a contract between your company with that country, or the locations or the country of the recipient of the data. If that is not possible, you have to make sure that the data subject, the people or the customers have given the consent. Yeah? So in short, you have to see the law of that country. No law, you have to enter into contract between your company and the recipient. And if that is not possible, you have to get the express consent of the individual or the data subject. So that's the position. And around the world, basically, that's the position. Yeah? I think
so it's normal, but so it's normal. But
it's normal. It's normal. The only problem is that I was looking at the agreement between the proposed agreement between Indonesia and US, the reciprocal agreement. Yeah, I think we can discuss later on about the provision there, saying that Indonesia should recognize America as a country that provides adequate protection. I think that's preempt the law or the PDP law. I think we can have a private conversation if you wish. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pak Abu Bakar. So we move to Ibu Tamalin. There are so many issues about belligerence and then genocide. Autonomous weapon system is also from Bubu, the protections for civilians. Yeah, yes, please.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the questions. I really do appreciate them. I think I'll group the questions into two categories. I think the first relates to the applicability of international humanitarian law to new weapons, such as drones or autonomous weapons and AI. And then secondly, we can talk about the issue of accountability. So in relationship to what IHL has to say about new weapons, particularly drones, so drones aren't prohibited by international humanitarian law. Most drones that we see today still have a human in the loop, which speaks to this idea that they're not fully autonomous, so they don't choose the target and then immediately attack it. There's still a human behind the weapon. And I think what's so interesting about international humanitarian law, it's over 70 years old, and still the laws around how we engage in conflict are still relevant even to new weapons that we see today. So they're not beyond the law. IHL still applies. The question that we are dealing with as the ICRC and the international community relates to this idea of autonomous weapons, fully autonomous weapons. And right now there are many discussions happening at an international level whether or not we should have a new treaty that seeks to limit or prohibit the use of autonomous weapons during conflict situations. There is no treaty as such yet, but something that's definitely being discussed, and we can see at the UN level it's definitely moving into a more concrete next step. ICRC's role in this particular area of the law is really to share with states the humanitarian consequences on the use of weapons that are fully autonomous, and how imperative it is to ensure that IHL continues to apply. So this really speaks to the question that you asked around, are we supporting a new treaty? Yes, ICRC supports a new treaty on autonomous weapons. And we are having more and more conversations about the use of AI and machine learning in decision-making in military operations, because we think it's incredibly dangerous. But again, a conversation that needs to be had. In relationship to accountability, it's a good question. What do we do when the law is broken? And it's a question I ask you. What do you do when the law is broken domestically, in any other field of international law or domestic law? First and foremost, it is a state's responsibility to hold those to account. So yes, we have international legal systems that exist, or international mechanisms such as the International Criminal Court. These bodies are in place to ensuring accountability, but accountability begins at home. The role of the ICRC when it comes to accountability is to really encourage states to ensure that their domestic legislations have these sorts of laws in place, but then to also encourage them to respect and ensure respect for this body of law. So yes, it's incredibly important right now, given the fact that it looks like IHL is violated continuously, which speaks to your question, which is what is ICRC's role? So our role is at many different levels. The development of the law to ensure that when new weapons are developed, that the ICRC is there to provide the humanitarian voice and perspective. It's there. Then when the law is violated and we see the challenges that I mentioned, that we ensure that this is raised with the relevant states, with the international community as such, with academics, with various audiences, armies, non-state armed groups. Our ethos and the way we work is to speak to everyone. So it's really important that we speak to everyone to encourage greater respect for the law and therefore less violations. So it happens at various levels. But thank you for your question. Thank you so much.
Chris, now it's yours, please.
Okay, thank you. First of all, yes, I'd like to address your question. But before I do, for the use of AI, not in my class, first of all. But beyond that, actually, it comes up a lot, and I do a lot of reviewing for academic papers. And I see a lot of AI use, and yes, when I see perfect English and things like that, it does raise a red flag. And also, I've seen a lot of hallucinated sources cited in academic papers, where AI comes up with, invents its own source. And of course, like you said, Turnitin is quite good at addressing that. Back to your original question about clean hands. Is it a general principle? Is it customary international law? And I would say, based on the literature and the jurisprudence, it has not been generally accepted as a principle of customary international law. So as I said, most of the time that the clean hands defense is raised, it's rejected by the majority in the jurisprudence, and it's marginally accepted by dissenting opinions. So at this point, I would say it's not generally a binding precedent on investment dispute issues based on Churchill mining, but also based on other cases that came before it as well, that I kind of rushed through earlier in my presentation. Beyond fraud, yeah, it's quite broad. It's not just fraud, it's any bad act. It could be bad faith, business conduct, engaging in an activity that is illegal or immoral. It's been applied pretty broadly outside of international law contexts. So yeah, it's a very good question, because it should not be limited strictly to straight, flat out fraud. Hope that answered your question. Regarding Papua and violations of rights, first of all, before we get to the slap suits. Yeah, part of the problem is that bilateral investment treaties are a tool for governments to protect their own people. But that means the governments have to want to protect their own people. And usually, especially in cases like Papua, the government isn't enforcing its rights under these bilateral investment treaties. And so it's not, their safety net for those individuals is not there. I will say, on a brighter note, on a more positive note, that a lot of governments from other countries are requiring, so for example, Australia and the UK passed specific anti-modern slavery protection acts. And those require that, so for example, an Australian company doing business in Papua is not just subject to local law, but is also subject to Australian law as well for protection of human rights. So, you know, that's one hopefully extra layer of protection. If the government here isn't going to protect the indigenous populations, possibly the governments from the foreign investors will protect those rights. SLAP suits, it's sort of both independent of your question and partly the same as the first part. Yeah, it's, you know, any kind of lawsuit that is waged by somebody who has resources and access to the system against a population that doesn't. Yeah, it's not just to silence them, it's also to tie them up financially, expend their resources, and sort of, basically it's bullying. Legal bullying, I guess, is a good way to say it. I know in some jurisdictions, I'll just say the United States, have specific laws that deal with SLAP suits. And I think it would go as far as to require specific legislation or the Ministry of Law regulating, you know, costs that could be awarded. So for example, if you filed a SLAP suit and it's dismissed or you lose, you have to pay the costs or something like that, I think is how a legislation would work. And that could be a step that the government could use to protect indigenous peoples from that. I'm not sure, and last question, I'm not sure if this was directed at me or not regarding data privacy in the US. There is no general act, but there are specific, some specific legislation regarding healthcare, protecting your healthcare information, your financial information, your education, children's information, but no umbrella law right now that protects data. And the big issue is, can you contract away data protection? You may have data protection.
And my question is that which international accountability mechanism can be effectively applied to address the widespread violation of international humanitarian law in Afghanistan, especially against the women and ethnic minority, in the absence of a functioning domestic judiciary? Thank you.
I think it's so clear questions. Yes, please.
Thank you. And really interesting questions. Thank you. So I appreciate them for allowing me to develop a bit more on my presentation. The first relates to this question around ICRC assistance. So you are completely right. I've been working for the ICRC now for 12 years. And when I first started, it was we are taught to how to communicate what we are and who we are and what we do. And the first thing is we are not a development agency. Now, what does that mean? It means that we work in conflict situations. We provide life-saving assistance, and we don't do it for a long time, exactly as you suggest. But just in the short time that I've been with the ICRC, this has changed. And it's changed because right now what we see is like a triple nexus. So this is a nexus that exists in contexts where they have conflict, they have development issues, and then they are also thinking about how to transition to peace. So for organizations like the ICRC, it became imperative for us to understand how we could do no harm, how we could ensure the greatest level of impact in countries where we have been working. So there's that element. in contexts that are lasting longer and longer, you're totally right. We don't just leave. We stay until the conflict has ended, and beyond that. Also to highlight that ICRC has delegations across the world. So for example, we have a delegation here in Jakarta, and our role isn't around conflict here, it's around building discussions or development of the law. So there are many examples of where the ICRC is based, and our assistance isn't assistance in life-saving in terms of food, etc., but our support is around the development of the law. So there's those two elements. The third thing that I'd like to highlight is the fact that ICRC doesn't exist in a vacuum. So we are part of the humanitarian framework, and each NGO or international organization has a different mandate. ICRC's is quite specific. We work in conflict situations. Our mandate is very much related to conflict. But there are so many other NGOs and so many other international organizations whose mandate is related to development or education, etc., etc. So our role is to coordinate and work with all of those organizations as well. But ICRC's role is also, we will substitute for a government when they can't, but then we don't do it for forever. So for example, we'll set up centers for people who need prosthetics, but eventually the idea is always to hand it over to the government so that they can continue the work moving forward. But the length of time that we stay has increased because of the protracted natures of conflicts that we see today. So yeah, something that we're always grappling with, how can we maintain our mandate of being humanitarian organization working in conflict, but then still dealing with development issues as well. So it's changing, but I think we're all being forced to change because the humanitarian space is shrinking. So that's a conversation for another time. In relation to the question around Afghanistan, Afghanistan is such a difficult context to navigate from a humanitarian space. Only to say that for the ICRC, our role isn't to speak to accountability mechanisms. Our mandate is very much in providing assistance. So we leave the accountability to states, to the international community, and to other NGOs or international organizations that deal with that. And I know that there's many discussions happening about the situation on a global stage, but only for me to say that, yeah, for the ICRC, it's a bit outside of the work that we do, but I appreciate that it's a difficult situation, and yes, just to speak back to the fact that accountability, there are many mechanisms. The question is the political will to ensure that they are used. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Tamlin, for your constructive response. So please give applause for all the speakers. And then now we would like to invite Ibu Aurelia Colombi Chiasi. Ibu Aurelia, are you there?
Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, so I would like to introduce a short bio of Ibu Aurelia. Ibu Aurelia has been a full professor of law and governance at the Faculty of the University of Groningen, the Netherlands, since 2010. Yeah, she holds a PhD degree from the Bucerius Law School in Hamburg, Germany. Okay, so it's so happy having you here, Ibu Aurelia. I believe that your contributions will be very helpful for us. So I know that it's very early morning there. We really appreciate your, you have to wake up so early. You have 20 minutes for presenting. The time is yours, Ibu Aurelia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind invitation, and I'm very, very happy to be part of this conference. And would it be possible perhaps to click on the present modus so that we have the full screen?
Yes, we have already.
Okay, it's already the full screen. Ah, yes. I don't see the screen. Ah, yes, yes, yes. Perfect, perfect. Good. If you don't mind to start with the first slide, technology and human rights in the digital age. The use of technology and in particular algorithms and AI systems, but also normal algorithms which are not intelligent enough to qualify as artificial intelligence. The use of algorithms, either in decision making or in the selection or in creating profiles for persons, for users, often creates or sometimes also worsens already existing human rights problems in both the public and the private sector. And in the Netherlands, the country where I work and live since 2010, as correctly stated in this kind introduction, in the Netherlands, we know very, very well the acute problems that may arise. We had 3 scandals of massive algorithm discrimination in the public administration in the Netherlands. So the childcare benefit scandal, the SIRI and the student loans scandal, where especially in the first and second case, algorithms were trained and with the learning algorithm, they were fed with some feature, including data about the nationality of also previously by the European Court of Human Rights. Then we can move to the next slide. So in Europe, so the concept of Europe is ambiguous because we have on the one hand the Council of Europe, which is an international organization consisting of more than 40 countries, and the system is centered around the European Convention of Human Rights. But also we have the European Union, which is a much smaller supranational organization. And the European Union itself also adheres to the jurisprudence, to the case law of the European Court of Human Rights, but there are 2 different systems. So it adheres, but the European Convention of Human Rights is not part of European Union law. The European Union has its own human rights charter, so to say. It's called Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union. But its scope of application is limited to either European Union institutions or member states only when they are implementing another piece of EU law. So the Charter, as a standalone instrument, does not fulfill the function that the European Convention of Human Rights fulfills. So then, still also in the European Union member states, human rights violations as such are treated under the system of the European Convention of Human Rights. And we can move to the next slide. And impact assessments, one instrument of governance. And what are impact assessments? Very broadly, all types of impact assessments are evaluations. It's an instrument to evaluate the impact of something. And this something could be a policy, an activity, an initiative, or a system, including an AI system or an algorithmic system. And these impact assessments are a mode of policy instrument imported from the United States of America. And the very first model of impact assessment was the environmental impact assessment in the late 60s, important in Europe then in the middle of the 80s. And we can then switch to the next slide. And the second model of impact assessment was the social impact assessment developed in the United States of America in the early 70s. And then the question is, how did the European Union import it? Then we can move to the next slide. And but before we mention how the European Union imported the social impact assessment before, then I would like to mention the human rights impact assessment, which was not a United States model. It was a United Nations model. It was somewhat younger, something younger model of impact assessments, developed by a commission within the United Nations, a commission set established by the United Nations, the former UN Commission on Transnational Corporations, which no longer exists, and then was transformed in the Working Group on Transnational Corporations, and then was transformed in the Human Rights Commission appointed, which then appointed John Ruggie. Sorry, it was not transformed. On the other hand, the Human Rights Commission then appointed John Ruggie as a special representative, and then the story of the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights started. And in this context, these guiding principles on business and human rights are a voluntary guidelines, are not mandatory law instrument. And then from the guiding principles of 2011, then 7 years later, in 2018, the guiding principle on human rights impact assessments of economic reforms were developed by the Human Rights Council. And also these principles on human rights impact assessments are voluntary. States can adhere to them, corporations can adhere to them, but then courts can sometimes use these principles, consider them as internationally widespread standards of care for international corporations when applying national law. And this is an interesting mode of transforming soft law into hard law through the work of national courts. But then we can move to the next slide. And from the guiding principles of business and human rights already before the specific guiding principles on human rights impact assessments, already from 2011, national action plans were based on these principles on human rights impact assessments. So the human rights impact assessments were born after 2011 and then were specified further at the UN level after 2018. And there are two types of human rights impact assessments. The standalone, which exclusively focus on human rights. For example, in Belgium, the National Action Plan from 2017 then introduced a human rights impact assessment for the regions. Belgium is a federal state. And, but then another type of human rights impact assessments are the so-called integrated assessments, which integrate human rights into overall integrated impact assessments, which consider everything together in one big pot: the environmental, the social, the health impact assessments. And this integrated impact assessment is the model that the European Union uses now. Then we can move to the next slide. Yes, so there are three types of impact assessments interesting for the context of this presentation. Then the first type are the regulatory impact assessments. These are impact assessments that the European Commission itself carries out in order to evaluate the impact of a proposed measure at the EU level, mostly in order to evaluate the impact of a measure proposed by the European Commission itself. So it's a kind of exercise of the European Commission on the action of the European Commission itself, regulatory impact assessments. And here, this integrated approach, so the impact on environment and the social, the economic impact, including, and the social impact, including the impact of human rights, and, which at the EU level are called fundamental rights. And impact assessments in practice then are a questionnaire, a list of questions. The basic structure, for example, we can find it in box 8 of the Better Regulation Guidelines of the European Commission of 2021. So then what are the details? First, what is the problem? Why it's a problem? And then why should the European Union act? What should be achieved? What are the options? And what are the impacts? And then how are the options to be compared? And then what measures are to be taken to mitigate adverse effects and so on. Then we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So at the European Union level, human rights are only just one type, only one type of fundamental rights of the European Union. The concept of fundamental rights is a European concept. And the fundamental rights of the European Union are codified nowadays in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, which also includes all human rights already included in the European Convention on Human Rights, but also in addition other human rights specified in other international conventions, for example, the covenants, covenants on economic and social rights. So the Charter includes many more human rights than the ones included in the European Convention on Human Rights. Then you can move to the next slide. And so it's a broader concept. And then the next slide again, and another slide, the next slide. And so for the regulatory impact assessments, there is a tool in the Better Regulation toolbox of the European Commission to conduct impact assessment concerning fundamental rights. And we can see an example of fundamental rights impact assessment, regulatory impact assessments in the box 2 of tool number 29 of the Better Regulation toolbox. Just an example of this questionnaire, which fundamental rights are affected by this proposed EU action, and then which type of rights, are there absolute rights or not, and then what is the impact on fundamental rights, and then how about the delimitation? Is it does it genuinely meet the interest of the Union? Is it necessary? Is it really necessary? Are there no plan B which are less intrusive into fundamental rights? Is the essence of fundamental rights preserved? And especially, what are the safeguards? What can be done in order to mitigate the impact on fundamental rights? And then we can move to the next slide. Further examples of questions concerning fundamental rights and discrimination. For example, does the option does this proposed EU action, does this regulatory option has directly or indirectly a different impact on women and men? Does it promote equality between women and men? Or does it indirectly or directly has different impacts on different groups? For example, minority, ethnic background, religious communities, or the like. We can move to the next slide. And now, just to zoom in, because the topic of this conference concerning the digital technologies, there are two other types of impact assessments. So far, we had talked about the impact assessment that the European Commission carries out on the proposed action of the European Union institutions. Assessments are mandated under the General Data Protection Regulation, and the fundamental rights impact assessments and in the context of the Artificial Intelligence Act are mandated under the Artificial Intelligence Act. We can move to the next slide. So this Artificial Intelligence Act, which is a relatively new regulation, mandatory law, hard law of the European Union, every organization which is included in a certain list, so certain types of private organizations, not every private actor, but certain types of private actors, the larger private actors, certain types of private actors and public bodies as well, this shall means must carry out an impact assessment on the impact on fundamental rights, including human rights, obviously, and Article 27 of the AI Act specifies how to do it. So if they want to use a high-risk AI system, and then so this impact assessment shall describe the process, the period of time, the persons, the groups of persons likely to be affected by the AI system, the specific risk of harm likely to arise on the groups of persons in question, and especially the description of the human oversight measures. So that must be human oversight measures and the measures to be taken if things go wrong, if the risk materialize. You can move to the next slide. And what are high-risk AI systems under the AI Act? Different types of different type of AI systems. If they are products of safety components of products, then there is an annex as such, Annex 1 of the Act, of the AI Act, and outside the field of products or product components, then the high-risk AI system are listed in the third annex. And then they are an indication that they are high risk unless it's proven that this AI system does not produce a significant risk of harm to the health, safety, or fundamental rights of natural persons. And then we just take a quick look at the list. This is not the list I copied on the slide. It's not the whole thing. I just selected some types of system. The biometric system, these are high risk, certainly high risk, and but also in the concerning the private, the universities concerning us, educational and vocational training. So then all the universities, if are under an obligation under the AI Act also to carry out human rights, fundamental rights impact assessment, and all the other safeguards under the Artificial Intelligence Act. I think my time has expired. We can just move to the last slide so that I can give my overall comment on the impact assessments. Just the very last slide. Yes, impact assessments sound good, look good, but so there's apparent good governance. But there are big problems that the entity, public or private, which uses the algorithm, has an enormous freedom also to fill the box, to tick the boxes. So it's a compliance with a questionnaire, which leaves enormous freedom to the perpetrator of human rights violations. So the human rights impact assessments sound good, but they are, as such, they are not sufficient. Also, classic hard law is necessary in order to better protect human rights, and court cases, and so accumulation of law and governance, accumulation of hard law and soft law is necessary to protect human rights in the digital age. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ibu Aurelia. Ibu Aurelia shows that the modern world are more complicated because of the existence of AI. But we got, I think, at least two things that is important. Number one is about the human rights impact assessment, and number two, we just learned about the AU Artificial Intelligence Act. That maybe it is the first, maybe? AU Artificial Intelligence Act, it is the first? Yeah, I think this is one of the first legal document that developed by AU. Because in Asia we don't have, in the United States, do you have, Pak Chris? No? Okay.
In the United States, there are at the level of the states, because the United States is a federal system. So at the federal level, there is nothing so far comparable to the AI Act of the European Union. At the state law level, there is something, especially funnily enough, in California, because California is also the state where the big tech corporations are seated. So there are some good laws in California, but not so comprehensive as the Artificial Intelligence Act by the European Union.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to invite, because we have a very limited time, so I can only give one questions. Please, anyone would like to give an answer questions? Anyone else? Okay, yes, please. Ibu Aurelia, we have one question for you.
Thank you so much for the sharing great information with us. My question is about the responsible committee or body who is going to do the impact assessment, because imagine if the government itself is someone who is involved in the violation of human rights in a specific country or location. So obviously will not be able to trust them to do that impact assessment, right? So who is the responsible body, and then let's say duty holder in completing and doing this assessment, and what are the implications after doing this assessment? What are the consequences or impacts? I mean tangible impacts or the consequences of doing that assessment, whether that really helps a country after knowing doing that assessment or not. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Parwana. Ibu Aurelia?
Thank you. That's a great question. That's a great question. The enforcement. The enforcement will be The enforcement will be designed as a system of governance coordinated by the AI office at the EU level. So there will be an AI. There is an AI office at the EU level, and the AI office is tasked with drafting the questionnaire, the impact assessment questionnaire. But then the enforcement at the level of the member state will be governed in a way which is similar to the enforcement of the data protection. Of the GDPR, of the General Data Protection Regulation. So also for the AI Act, there will be a system of national enforcement authorities. So like for the GDPR, we have, for example, the Irish Data Protection Authority, which issues all the fines against the big tech corporations, which have in the European Union their main seat in Ireland. So also for the AI Act, there will be national authorities. And every member state has to designate a national authority. In some cases, it will be the same authority as under the GDPR. In the other cases, it will be different national authority. The enforcement in practice, the fines or the prohibitions will be issued by the national enforcement authorities, just one per member state, in coordination with the AI office at the EU level.
Thank you, Bu Aurela. It's clear explanation, I think. So the one who has the responsibility to implement is still the domestic levels, yeah. Okay, so we arrived at the end of the sessions. I would like once again to express my deep appreciations and greatest appreciations to all speakers. We have so many fruitful and very comprehensive and also very diverse issues. Started from the issue of AI, and then Ibu Tamadin talking about ICRC and all the authorities of ICRC, and also by Chris talk about the clean hand doctrine, and that is also important for us. And then Bu Aurelia ended by the issue of human rights impact assessment, and also delivering the new perspective about on how the AI office under AU having the authority and also developed the mechanism to make sure that the AI creating their work still under the rule of law. Okay, so let's end our discussion with give a big applause to us and also to the speakers. On behalf of the moderator, I would like to say thank you. I know that you will have your panel. Good luck for your panels. See you next discussions. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Aurelia, for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, professors, the esteemed colleagues. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Have a good day, Aurelia.
Distinguished speakers, dear ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this first session to end, allow me to express on behalf of the Faculty of Law UII our greatest gratitude. And before we jump to the next agenda, please do not leave the room just yet. We have several important announcements that you absolutely cannot miss. First, the committee will display the QR code on the screen, and this QR code leads you to the Google form that must be filled in order to receive your participation certificate. Yeah. So this QR code leads you to the Google form that must be filled in order to receive your participation certificate. So kindly take a moment to scan and complete the form. We will give you 5 minutes. If you're unable to scan, you may write down bit.ly/conference strike PICLTS25 and enter it to the Google so you can access the Google form manually. If you have any problem to access the Google form, you may contact the nearby committee. Just raise your hand and the committee will help you to fill out the attendance form. All right, we have 2 minutes left. Yeah. We also inform you that our lunch will be located at the transit room. So it's located just beside this auditorium. So for lunch and short break before we begin the next agenda. And those who wish to perform Dhuhr prayer, our prayer room or musala is located on the first floor. So you may use either the stairs or the elevator provided. And please also take note that the roundtable session for call for paper will begin at 13:30. Yeah, so for the lunch, located besides this auditorium. Just beside this auditorium, you may take lunch and having the short break before we begin to the next session. It is the round table within the chamber session. And for those who wish to perform Dhuhr prayer, our prayer room, musala, is located on the first floor. You may use either the stairs or the elevator provided. The call for paper round table session will begin 13:30 sharp. 13:30 sharp. And please do not be late to enter your assigned chamber.
Santa Corakada.
Okay. Itu family boss ko tidak siya. Hali biga inji present dori. Andin nanti. Please one more. Please one more. Thank you. Maaf ya, arakan.
من هنا